This ESPN podcast is brought to you by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast. Today on the show, Tristan Cockcroft and I talk about the steadiest players you want in 2016. Plus, Bengals running back Jeremy Hill stops by. Check it all out on the ESPN app. Just click on the Listen tab and click on Fantasy Focus Football.
And it's Golden State for Kevin Durant. I'm viewing it as the weakest move I've ever seen from a superstar. Plain and simple. That's just how I look at it. You are the difference. You are the superstar. And you depart for the team that beat you, that's the two-time reigning defending Western Conference champion. You're jumping on a bandwagon as far as I'm concerned.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome into another edition of First Take on this Monday. It's going to be a very good week. We are doing something new here on First Take, the radio takeover. You'll notice I'm joined by Mason and Ireland, hosts on ESPN LA, our radio station out there. You guys figured out what to wear. That's big.
Well, first I want to start by saying nice tie.
Yeah, no. I was told I have to wear a tie, and so I didn't realize we were going casual, and so right off the bat, we're getting rid of it, okay?
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Just get
no
rid of the
tie, no hat.
right off the bat.
Yeah. So Jen, the moral of that story is he's a rule follower.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you want to.
Yeah. They love it when you take a tie off on live TV.
They told him to wear a tie. He wears a tie.
Yes.
So if you have questions for him, just ask and he'll answer very politely.
Yes.
Or just
absolutely.
a follower in general, following your lead.
Yes,
exactly. That's the way the show will go.
We are off to a rousing start here on First Take, and don't go anywhere because later in the show we have a very big announcement. We will reveal the newest member of the First Take family who dares to take on Stephen A. Smith on a daily basis.
Thank you. It's me, right?
You're leaving the Mason and Ireland show? How could you?
I'm not allowed to say until much later in the show.
All right.
But
so they haven't even told you.
Just stick around for that. I have a feeling, though, you would know.
Really? I thought I was playing for the job. No?
Your audition's over. You want to go eat?
Let's continue with that.
All right, good.
Yes. Let's begin.
Your dream is dead.
With Kevin Durant. You know what they say, boys. If you can't beat them, join them. Kevin Durant leaving the Thunder for the team that beat them in the Western Conference Finals, that, of course, being the Warriors. Durant said he had to meet with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson face-to-face to find out if they truly wanted him to be a teammate. He said he felt comfortable, authentic, and real. But you know how Stephen A. Smith feels about this. He keeps it real, calling it a weak move on the part of Kevin Durant. Steve, do you agree with this move?
I could not disagree with Stephen A. more. By the way, for the rest of the morning, I'd like to be called Stephen J. My middle, can we go with Stephen J?
Sure.
You know, honestly, the Warriors are the gold standard in the NBA. Frankly, the gold standard in all of sports. If you look at it, Joe Lacob said last year they are light years ahead of every organization in the NBA. Could not agree more. They've got a great general manager. They got a great gut talent evaluator in Jerry West. They've got huge analytics. In fact, Sloan Conference named them strongest analytics in all of professional sports. A state-of-the-art coach, a beautiful egoless system, positionless basketball. They don't care who gets the shot. If I was Kevin Durant, I would want to play for Golden State.
Stephen A. is wrong, but not for any of the reasons that Mason said. Joe Lacob has nothing to do with this equation. And Mason sounds like Jerry Krause. Remember Jerry Krause, the old Bulls general manager, who would say, organizations win championships, players don't win championships, and Michael Jordan didn't talk to him.
Right, never went.
It's a players' league. The NBA always has been a players' league. The reason Stephen A. is wrong is Kevin Durant earned this right. He earned this right to leave Oklahoma City. All three of us have done it. Stephen A's done it. Skip just did it.
I would get out of Oklahoma City. Are you kidding me?
I have nothing against Oklahoma City, but he's been there for 9 years. Jen, he has the right to leave and go to a better situation. We all do. And I think to criticize him, as Stephen A. did, for going to a better situation after he had earned it, is hypocritical, because Stephen A's done it, I've done it, you've done it, Steve's done it. When we have a chance to go to a better situation, that's what we should do. I'm not the least bit critical of Kevin Durant, and he's not going to the Warriors because of
And I would say they go to the best situation, right? If you want to work in tech, you go to Google or Apple. You want to work in finance, you want to go to Wall Street. If you want to be a sports broadcaster, this is where you go. Gold standard. If you want to play basketball, you play for the Golden State Warriors. He is going to live in the finals for for what, 4 or 5 years from now. I honestly, I would make the same choice, and this is where we disagree. I do believe organizations win championships. That's why Kevin Durant chose Golden State.
So you think
it's because it's a great organization.
You think the Cavaliers won the title because of Dan Gilbert?
Well, he certainly did get LeBron James to come back, right?
No, LeBron James came back because he wanted to play in his hometown. LeBron and Dan Gilbert don't even speak.
We cannot compare organizations.
You just did.
In terms of Cleveland and Golden State.
Cleveland just won.
Golden State is absolute state of the art. Cleveland won because of LeBron.
Oh, so it's a players' league.
I don't give credit to the organization. I believe I rested mine a while ago.
Wait, you just said you don't give credit to the organization?
No, they've got a decent organization. Nothing like Golden State.
Right.
Golden State is state of the art.
Right, so then how did Cleveland beat them?
Because they've got a superstar, maybe the greatest player in the history of the game, playing at his absolute peak.
So, Jen, my point that it's a players' league, he just made.
All right, let's talk about players for a moment.
No, wait a minute, Jen. Yeah. My point that Kevin Durant chose them because they're a great organization, I rest my case.
Okay, you both have rested your cases. The issue, though, is that in the old days, years ago, eons ago, decades ago, players say they would never have done this. Larry Bird going on the record saying he couldn't have imagined him doing something like this. Where did it start evolving into a place where players feel comfortable joining the powerhouse teams as opposed to feeling like that will dictate their legacy?
The super team in Miami changed everything. When those three guys got together and said, we are going to join forces and play together in one spot, they decided it was Miami because Dwayne Wade was already there. But that now players look to play with each other all the time. And to your point, Jen, that in the old days, these guys say they would never do it. Larry Bird. Charles Barkley came out and criticized Durant for this. Charles Barkley, who is great on television, left Philadelphia when their team was lousy and went to Phoenix to play with Kevin Johnson, made it to the finals. When Phoenix started going down, he went to Houston to play with Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler. He did the exact same thing. It just didn't work.
Yeah, and
these old players are get off my lawn.
Well, yeah, and they are. And the last time a team won a championship without at least 2 superstars, you got to go all the way back to the Pistons, and arguably, I guess you could count Chauncey Billups, but they didn't even have a real superstar. Ultimately, if you look at, for example, started with Boston with their big 3. Even Cleveland tried to assemble a big 3 with Kevin Love and Kyrie and LeBron. You need multiple superstars to win a championship now. You got to have it. And on this case in Golden State now, they got 4 players that could be Hall of Famers at this point. I mean, I think that they are the gold standard, and I don't think you win without joining other players. I don't believe, and I also think it suggests that Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant weren't necessarily on the same page. He chose to leave Russell Westbrook when he chose to leave Oklahoma City.
Is Kevin Durant a Hall of Famer if he never wins a title?
Yes. Oh, he's a Hall of Famer right now. If Kevin Durant, God forbid, something were to happen to him and he had to retire, Kevin Durant would be in the Hall of Fame.
So that legacy solidified, which kind of leads credence to the idea that it is still about the rings, though, when guys look at their legacy.
It's unfair, but it is about the rings.
Well, and to that point, Jerry West said that in the phone call to Kevin Durant. He got on the phone and he said, the thing that haunts me, and we both know Jerry, and Jerry is haunted. Jerry.
He's haunted 20. Yeah, no, he's a haunted
He said,
guy.
is that I lost 8 or 9 times in the finals.
1-9 in the finals.
And so I think,
or 1-8. I'm not sure. Don't check me on the facts.
Don't let the facts.
Either 1-9 or 1-10.
But his point was that to Durant, hey, if you don't go to the finals and win it, it'll haunt you for the rest of your life. So he went to a place where he's going to go to the finals and probably win it. And I don't know how you criticize a guy for that.
No, and history will look back, and in 20 years, people will say, oh yeah, Kevin Durant, Hall of Famers, and he won 3 rings or he won 4 rings. People will forget the fact that he went to Golden State and teamed up with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Trey.
Well, maybe not people in Oklahoma City.
No, people in Oklahoma City. This thing is going to stick. Yeah, no question.
Continue burning jerseys. For
but I'll tell you what,
you can already purchase a Kevin Durant Golden State Warriors jersey.
Right. I'll tell you what. If I agree with what Sam Presti said, if I'm in Oklahoma City, Kevin Durant put that team on the map. Kevin Durant turned Oklahoma City. My other job is that I'm the radio guy for the Lakers.
Apparently your main job is what you said earlier this morning. This is just your goof around job.
This job? Yeah. This is a one-day gig.
Yeah, this is a one-day gig, right. But already they want to pull the plug.
The thing with Durant was he turned Oklahoma City into the best road venue in the league. They were, and Golden State is now, but Oklahoma City was the loudest building in the league. They would be on their feet from the beginning to the end. Him and Westbrook had lightning in a bottle. And if I was in Oklahoma City, I would look back on Kevin Durant and say thank you I hope he doesn't get booed when he goes back. Maybe I'm being naive and they will boo him, but he built that thing.
Well, and the other thing is they realized, maybe Durant realized, that Westbrook is the next guy out the door. I mean, if Westbrook is leaving, if Westbrook couldn't give Durant any assurances that he was going to stay, well, then heck, I'd get out of there too.
What do you make of the statement from James Harden saying there is only one ball, which is something we hear oftentimes when you discuss the team's ability to share possessions?
Well, super teams in the first year, Jen, don't always win it. You look back on the Miami super team in the first year, that was the year they lost to Dallas and Dirk Nowitzki in the finals. I was around a team where the Lakers had Shaq and Kobe, and they brought in Gary Payton and Karl Malone. That team made it to the finals, started 18-3, made it to the finals, and lost. It takes some time to set the clay. Now, I think the Warriors are going to be favored in every game they play next year. Every game. But I don't necessarily think they're a lock to win it. Teams that have been together longer might be more title ready. It could take the Warriors a couple of years to bake the cake.
I don't agree. Their cake is already baked. It's got icing on it. Then there are candles, and there's like a sparkler thing in the middle.
So if I made you bet your house on, I could give you the Warriors or the field, and I get Cleveland and everybody else.
Give me the Warriors.
Okay.
Give me the Warriors. I think they're going to run roughshod against the league.
It does indicate that Durant has a pretty good idea of how valuable chemistry is, or how important it is to success, in that he wanted to meet with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson beforehand.
And he's willing to, he doesn't need every shot. And that's the beauty of that Golden State team. It is incredibly egoless, and that's what Steph Curry, that's what Klay Thompson, that's what he was sold on. I mean, who's going to be the leading scorer on the Warriors? Probably Durant, could be Steph, but I don't think either one of them care.
Right, that's the bottom line. The answer to your question is it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that I think Durant, to Steve's point, is going to get better shots. It not only doesn't matter who gets the shots, Durant's going to be more open than he was in Oklahoma City.
I mean, in their best shooting percentage is when they've got 6 or more passes. They move the basketball and create more open shots. You won't have as many contested threes as you did in OKC when they knew you were going to be the shooter. So I think Kevin Durant's going to get better shots. I think he's going to become a more efficient player, and that team is just unstoppable.
Yeah, everybody wants to be the guy until you're being double and triple teamed out there on the hardwood. We want you at home to get involved in this conversation. Head to Twitter and vote. Do you think Durant going to the Warriors is a good thing for the NBA? We'll reveal those results a little bit later in the show. I like the energy. That
we're going for it. We're going for it here. Let's go.
Well, apparently we have nothing to lose. You lost the gig to whoever they're going to announce.
No, I believe I'm still playing my way.
I think so as well. He's really earning it as the show goes. You mentioned the Miami Heat earlier. Let's talk about a former member of the Miami Heat. Dwayne Wade also decided to leave the only team he has played for, agreeing to a 2-year deal with the Chicago Bulls. He's a 12-time All-Star, 3-time champion. He called it a business decision, gentlemen, and he admitted that sometimes the business side stinks. John, good move by the Bulls to sign Dwayne Wade.
I don't hate it. I think that Miami is going into a rebuild, and Chicago missed the playoffs last year. And I don't know if people are aware of this, but Chicago sells out every game all the time, even since Jordan left. So they lost Derrick Rose. They lost Joakim Noah. They were coming back with Jimmy Butler and a bunch of kind of no-name guys. Dwayne Wade, Jen, was excellent last year. I don't think people realize that he was one of the best shooting guards in the league. He had a PER of 20. That's all-star level.
Did you look that up?
I did, right before the show.
You looked that up?
Yeah, right before the show. He scored 38 points in the playoffs.
Okay, you're going on instinct.
That's how he rolls. So, I mean, Dwayne Wade is the best player that Miami had last year, and now Chicago's getting them. And the other thing I like about it, it's a 2-year deal. So you're getting Dwayne Wade in his hometown for 2 years. If it doesn't work, you just eat it.
Absolutely terrible move for the Bulls. Absolutely terrible. This game is now about spreading the floor, ball movement, and three-point shots. Rajon Rondo, not a three-point shooter. Jimmy Butler had a bad year shooting threes last year. Dwayne Wade really doesn't shoot threes at all. In fact, if you take this year's roster They last year took about 500 threes. The Golden State Warriors took 2,500 threes.
Did you look that up?
This is how you win. No, I had the guy that does the computer thing look it up. I can't figure stuff like that out myself. But ultimately, yeah, you're talking about a team that feels like it's great 5 years ago. And let me just add the caveat here. The Bulls, under the salary cap, are only going to have about $7 million in salary cap space next year. That means they are already out on Westbrook, already out on Blake Griffin.
Not necessarily. I mean, you can move players pretty easily in this league.
But cap space is incredibly valuable,
right,
and they don't have it.
But no, well, you can easily move it. Look, I mean, they created it to sign Wade. But those things they put up, the teams they put up on the screen.
They're called graphics.
The team on the right is better than the team on the left. Did the Bulls get better or worse?
They got the same.
They
went from a 42-win team to a 42-win team.
No.
There will be no improvement, a little bit more star power, but no real improvement. That team is no threat to win the
And to your point, they do sell out every single game. You don't necessarily need the star power to get butts in the seats.
Right, but I think you need to give people a reason to get excited about the Bulls. And a team with Jimmy Butler, Rajon Rondo, who led the NBA in assists last year.
Rajon Rondo is a nutcase.
Right,
we just
but he led the league in assists last year.
Look, he was at Sacramento this last year with the best center in the league. They couldn't even get to the playoffs. Don't tell me Rajon Rondo is a championship player. He's not. Jimmy Butler is a nice player. What they're trying to do
Rajon Rondo won the championship in 2008.
They are trying. Well, obviously, it hasn't won in a while. The problem is for the Bulls is it's as though they're doing what the Lakers did a few years ago, where they're kind of rebuilding. Noah's gone, Rose is gone, sort of rebuilt, and then they stick a big shiny object there with Dwayne Wade.
Dwayne Wade
cannot do both.
Dwayne Wade's one of the best shooting guards in the league.
Dwayne Wade is the Kobe of the Bulls, in the same way they gave Kobe the big contract at the end so that there would be something exciting. Dwayne Wade is the something exciting in Chicago.
One final thing to his earlier rant. The Bulls can still shoot threes. Mirotic is an excellent three-point shooter. Doug McDermott was drafted to shoot threes. They'll be fine.
500 threes versus 2,500 threes.
Bottom line, Jen, they missed the playoffs last year. They'll make them this year.
Bottom line is they were a 42-win team last year. They're a 42-win team
How
this year.
does this fit in with Hoiberg's plan of younger and faster?
Doesn't.
Nope.
But Hoiberg's not the GM. That's why Tom Thibodeau's gone. Gar Forman's picking the players. Fred's got to coach them.
Yeah, I mean, look, the bottom line is you got a coach who wants younger and faster. You got a GM, Gar Forman, who's getting older and slower. I don't understand. If the GM and the coach are not on the same page, you're a dysfunctional organization. This is a terrible move for Chicago, and it's going to come back to haunt them.
They'll be better than they were. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. They're getting better.
But they still have to go through Cleveland in order to advance in the East. Can they do it with this roster?
Well, better than they could a year ago. That's, you've got to increase your chances. A series with Dwayne Wade, Jimmy Butler, and Rajon Rondo, you've got a puncher's chance against Cleveland. Last year, they didn't have a chance at all.
Out in the second round.
Maybe, but they got a chance.
Out in the second round.
Chemistry, a big concern for the Bulls in the last few years. There was talk of Butler and Rose not exactly being able to see eye to eye. Do you think that these players gel?
Well, Rajon Rondo's obviously a chemistry guy. Whenever you
yes,
put Rajon Rondo on a team, he's Captain Chemistry. Yeah. So he was the key to sort of putting this team, weaving together a really good team, because that's what Rajon Rondo has always done, Ireland.
Bulls are in a weak conference. They're going to win 50 games this year and be in the top 4 of the playoffs in the East.
All right, so you see them as a playoff team
this
season.
Yeah.
With this roster.
And I see them as a 42-win team.
So you got them out.
Yeah, I got them out.
And yet the window for Wade, very small, just the 2 years. Do you see him having a better year this next following year, or is this the year he has to make something happen?
Well, he's got to play good both years, or he's not going to get another deal.
Window's closed. I mean, he's got to break the window and then reach inside and unlock it and lift it up and then climb through. That's how his window is.
So you're not impressed with what Wade accomplished last year?
Look, I love Dwayne Wade. He is an
we can tell by the way you talked about him.
Look, get rid of a guy a year early as opposed to getting rid of a guy a year late. I think Pat Riley made an offer just credible enough so that he would go somewhere else. I don't believe Pat Riley really wanted to keep him. I think he wanted to restart a rebuild there.
Is this an issue for his legacy? Will this affect Dwayne Wade's legacy in the NBA?
No.
No, Jen, we were talking about this the other day. 3
championships in Atlanta or in Miami, it's never going to affect us.
Do you know where Akeem Olajuwon ended his career?
I'm guessing not with the Rockets.
Toronto.
Yeah.
Do you know where Patrick Ewing ended his career?
Yeah, a lot of guys do end
Seattle.
up somewhere else. We even talk about Dan Marino. And
You know where I ended my career?
Right
here.
on this
First
day.
take. Yeah, first take.
Today at this step.
In about an hour.
We never hold the Michael Jordan's wizard component against an all-time great player. Dwayne Wade's legacy is set.
The post-Kobe Bryant era has begun in Los Angeles, and they were able to get a lot of money off the books when he left. Take a look at the players they were able to sign with those dollar bills. Luol Deng, 4 years, $72 million. Mozgov, 4 years, $64 million. Jordan Clarkson, 4-year, $50 million deal. Brandon Ingram, obviously they got with the second pick. The Lakers, of course, as you guys know very well, had the worst record in the Western Conference at 17-65 last season.
Really?
You may have heard about that.
Yeah.
What is?
I forgot they won any at all.
That's depressing.
What is the state of the Lakers now?
Well, Jen, first let me explain to the audience that I work for the Lakers, and it makes me a shameless Lakers apologist. But
They pay you to apologize.
exactly. I'll tell you what the plan is, and then Mason will tell you why he hates it. The plan is to see if any of these 4 guys that they've drafted over the last 3 seasons hit. That's Julius Randle, Jordan Clarkson, D'Angelo Russell, or most recently Brandon Ingram. There's been a lot of calls to trade those guys for a star. A lot of people, I've put this out on the table, I say go get Westbrook. Westbrook's my favorite player in the NBA. They're not going to do it. They're sticking with those kids. They're trying to follow the model that Golden State did with Curry and Clay and Draymond, or that Oklahoma City did a few years ago with Harden and Westbrook and Durant. They're going to see if they've drafted efficiently, if any of these kids hit. And they've got 3 top 7 picks, Randall, Russell, and most recently Ingram. So they're going to commit to the kids, see if it works, and if they get Harden, Westbrook, and Durant, they'll be off and running. A lot of people don't want to wait for that. Laker fans are used to winning, but they're in a rebuild, and that's what they're trying to do. And, Steve, that is their plan.
Okay. 65 and 181. I actually did the math on that one. That is the Lakers record.
Don't take it to the bank.
Over the past 3 years. 65 and 81. Dr. Jerry Buss.
No, you can't add. Don't do math.
65 and 181.
Yeah, don't
right?
do math. Yeah.
Dr. Jerry Buss, honestly, they've prevailed over a 17-win season. Dr. Jerry Buss has to be turning over in his grave. He did give Jim Buss the keys to the car. Mitch Kupchak has been empowered to be the general manager, and look what we've got. 3 worst seasons in Lakers history. And I've been saying, Jim Buss gave himself a self-imposed timeline, right? By the end of this season,
right,
he will step down if the Lakers aren't championship caliber. And let me tell you, they are not close. They're not close.
Was the hair flip for effect there?
Yeah, I was off camera.
How do you assume he is defining championship caliber?
Competing for
the Western Conference.
And they got no chance.
But,
no shot at all.
To Steve's point.
That means pull the plug.
To your point, when Westbrook and Durant were rookies, Westbrook was a rookie, Durant was in his second year, they started a season 3-28. This comes with the territory. If you're going to commit to these kids, you have to let them lose. Now, the problem is, how much do you let them lose? And that's back to what you're
and I think it was genius that they took a gigantic bag of money and they went to Timothy Mozgov's doorstep on the very first night of free agency and said, please take our money, because nobody else will. You go back 2 years, they were getting full-fledged meetings with guys like Carmelo Anthony. Last year, they did a meeting with LaMarcus Aldridge, who came out afterwards and said, that is an embarrassment. I would never sign with them. Then they had like a little make-good meeting where they said, oh, come out and say something. It was like a pity meeting. They got a pity meeting with LaMarcus Aldridge. This year, nobody will even sit down with them. Kevin Durant wouldn't even hear a presentation. There is no charisma. There is no vision. There are no closers in that front office. I look up at Jerry West at Golden State, and I think, why Why don't we have Jerry West? He's a Laker. He's the logo. He's a gut player, man. He's a talent evaluator, and we didn't keep him.
Don't you agree that the reason they can't even get meetings and the reason they're not getting any of these really big stars, the LeBrons, the Durants of the world, is that those guys, those elite stars, want to go to a place where they can win? The Lakers are in a rebuild. They're not going to win it all this year. Is that not the number one thing that those guys care about?
Going to a winning team?
Correct.
Of course, but also going to, and I'm going to come back to it, a winning organization. There is nothing but disorganization in the Lakers front office. Honestly, at some point, this has to land at the doorstep of Jeannie Buss. She is in charge. She can pull the plug on her brother and Mitch Kupchak at any time and bring in a great basketball guy. She has chosen not to do that. So not just Jim Buss and Mitch Kupchak have reigned over this terrible stretch, 17 wins last year. Jeannie Buss is responsible as well.
Well, to a degree. She's in charge of all the business operations, and her dad set it up that Jim would be in charge of all the basketball. Well, she could.
Yeah,
to the extent that she could fire him. But let's see if they live up to Jim's promise, which was that
they
weren't.
You know they're not.
No, it's at the end of this year. You even said it.
You think they're going to go to the Western Conference semifinals?
No. I'm saying that if they don't, will Jim step down?
Right. He's got to.
Right.
He's got to.
So there you go.
He said he will.
Yeah. And honestly, I think this will go down as a very dark period in Lakers history. The brand, the franchise used to really mean something. It's not what it used to be, and it's because of Jim Buss. It's because of Mitch Kupchak. It's because of sort of this visionless way they've gone about running the team for the last few years. I've been saying it for 2 years.
Right.
They've got to make a change, and they haven't.
If these kids hit, if Ingram, Russell, and Randall hit, don't you have to take all that back?
No.
Why?
No.
They just did exactly what Oklahoma City
because there was a way to do this without falling into the dumps. There was a way to do this by collecting assets other than Timofey Mozgov and Luol Deng, who are both on the wrong side of 30. They've overpaid drastically for those guys, even in this market. As you said earlier, Festus Ezeli went for a very give me Festus Ezeli on a 2-year deal instead of Timofey Mozgov on a gigantic 4-year deal.
Well, the only reason I can think they didn't go in on Ezeli is they have Luke Walton, who was around him for the last 2 years. So maybe Luke knew something that we don't.
Oh, Luke has what, the secret book on Timofey Mozgov? I think we all know who Timofey Mozgov is.
But he would know whether or not to sign Festus Ezeli, right? Don't you have to listen to Luke a little?
Don't you have to worry also about cap space?
Not as much as you used to.
Wait a minute. Right now, because of what the Lakers did, they've got room for one max player next year, or one super max player last year. They could have done this in a way that allowed them to have room for 2 supermax players this year. They're not even operating right under the cap. I understand look, I like Brandon Ingram a lot. I like D'Angelo Russell a lot. Larry Nance Jr. is a scrappy little guy. Julius Randle can certainly play some. I mean, I think he's a 10-10 guy at the very least.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you had to throw a bunch of money at guys that you're going to be stuck with for a few years.
Right, but those guys are irrelevant, Jen. I think that you've got to pay somebody. There's a salary floor in the NBA that you have to hit. You got to pay somebody.
They could have hit it with shorter deals.
Well, and the Lakers sink or swim on these 3 young guys. If these 3, or if you add Clarkson, that's 4. Mm-hmm. If one of these guys or 2 of these guys hit, the Lakers are off and running. If they don't, it's a disaster.
All right, so since you've been brought into the vault, you've been in these meetings.
Yes, the inner sanctum.
He's actually making some of the decisions. Yeah.
They
listen very closely to the radio guy over there.
What is the perception from those young players on what went down this past season? Because there was a lot of criticism about the way that Kobe Bryant, while now in the rear view, was treated and handled, and how that may have affected the progress of some of these young players who you say is the plan going forward.
Right. The reason Byron Scott was hired was to usher Kobe Bryant out of his career. I would say basically get him out of the Kobe era.
I think he was a sitter. He was a babysitter.
And if he would have won, they would have kept him, but he couldn't figure out a way to win.
He's an old school.
Hourly wage.
Great hourly wage. Seriously, it used to be like $10
was the biggest star in LA for the past 10 years. They weren't going to trade him. So you look, whether you. There's guys, I think now Kobe, now Duncan. We may be at the end of the guy who plays for one team his whole career.
Yeah, but Byron Scott and Kobe Bryant could have handled this differently and better, because they would go to practice, and those young guys would practice one particular thing. Kobe didn't practice a lot this year. Then they would go out to a game, and Kobe would play, and they'd be like, this is a totally different thing than we practiced. It stunted their development. If Kobe and Byron were more focused on the future, and Kobe certainly could have been, this team would be further along. D'Angelo Russell, Julius Randle, Larry Nance would have developed more had there been a coach other than Byron Scott.
Which is why they have Luke Walton there now. And I think what they're going to do without Kobe is hold everybody accountable. To Steve's point, last couple of years, everybody was held accountable except Kobe. Byron was just never going to take him out of a game, even if he missed every shot he took, was never going to yell at him for not playing defense. Now everybody is accountable, and hopefully one of these guys pops. Because as I keep saying, if one of them pops, then if they get their Damian Lillard, they can build around him. But if they don't, then they drafted poorly, and it's going to be bad.
It is a heck of a gamble to attach yourself to so many young players. What type of pro do you see Ingram being?
Well, we've only seen him play 2 games. He looks like he's the real deal, but it's too early to tell. And he's 19, Jen. I mean, all
the more reason to question the decision to attach yourself to someone so
well, you can trade him. Most Laker fans don't want to do it. Mason and I are a little more liberal. We say that all young players are assets.
You can trade for Westbrook. I mean, they're assets. If you could trade for Westbrook right now, I would. I would say,
right, but we're
your players.
You admit we're in the minority on that. Like, we put this out on our radio show the other day. Like, trade these young guys for Westbrook, trade them for a star, and people revolt.
Right, but there are 2 kinds of fans, right? There are the ones who are patient and into the development of players, right? They get it. And then there's the mass fan base, which is, we want to win. We don't care how you do it. Those people are very, very frustrated with what they're seeing on the floor. 17, you can't ask for people to pay for season tickets after a 17-win season.
And to Steve's point, Los Angeles.
I love when you say
no Kobe Bryant.
Right, without Kobe Bryant.
Well, and that's where I'm going. It's a star-driven town, Jen. So if one of those guys, Russell, Randall, Ingram, Clarkson, doesn't turn into a superstar, you have to go get one. Because in Los Angeles, that's what people do.
And we already know. You said it. Superstars want to go where they can win. So if one of those guys goes bust, what exactly is the option? How do they get the big superstar? A superstar won't want to go there.
Window.
That means that this is a roll of the dice at this point. Now we hope it's a good roll. We hope it doesn't come up snake eyes. But if it does, I mean, it is a full-scale disaster. And I'll tell you what, if this team doesn't play well this year, there are pitchforks and there are torches in El Segundo. People will want Jim Buss gone. I've seen Stephen A. talk about Jim Buss. Let me just say, Stephen A. 100% right about this. His approval rating, if we were to do a survey, like a presidential survey, his approval rating is lower than Congress. It's about 9%.
Would be lower than either presidential candidate.
I think you may be the only guy who approves. Like, you're the one guy who approves. You and everybody in El Segundo. Well, and by the way, not even everybody in El Segundo.
Yeah, and the Laker people, the Laker employees have no choice. Jeannie decides who runs the team,
and that's why it falls on the doorstep of Jeannie.
So we have to live with it. But they're banking on one of these guys, Jen. I know it's a big role, but they're banking on one of these guys being a star. And let's hope they're right, because if not, the Lakers are going to be in a long rebuild.
Look, Jerry West would have never let this happen. Dr. Buss would have never let this happen. We never would have.
What would they have done?
Well, first of all, you'd have Jerry Buss, who was a big thinker. He was a vision guy. These guys were executing his vision. Mitch Kupchak, Jim Buss. They were out there. Jerry set the stage for them and made it all possible.
Made it all about big stars.
You subtract Dr. Buss from this, and you've got kind of nickel diamond along. I'll tell you what, if you had a meeting with Kevin Durant and Dr. Jerry Buss, I think you've got a chance to close Kevin Durant. Who closed at Golden State with Kevin Durant? Well, it was Jerry West. He was the last guy that Kevin Durant heard from. If Dr. Buss had survived, if he had continued to live, and if we had Jerry West, I believe Kevin Durant would be a Laker.
Well, and we'll see what happens after this year. I mean, this year they're promising front office changes. So let's
go.
See.
Let's move it
see
along.
Who they bring back
move it along. Let's go.
The reason Walton came was he says he knows what it could be.
But at some point, Jeannie Buss is really using Jim as a human shield, right? She is basically not getting any criticism because there's Jim there. Like, Jim is kind of the
scapegoat?
He's the scapegoat. He's kind of the Bobo guy. Well, Jim, I gave him till. Well, guess what? When he's off the watch, it's all on Jeannie Buss. She's got to make the right basketball decision, bring in the right basketball mind, somebody with a vision, and somebody, by the way, to execute what Luke Walton wants to do.
The 2016 Home Run Derby.
The warning track, gone on the wall. This just clears the bench.
Followed by the 87th Major League Baseball All-Star Game.
Leadoff homer for Mike Trout, and the American League has jumped out.
Live from Petco Park in San Diego. The Home Run Derby, Monday at 8 Eastern. Followed by the All-Star Game, Tuesday at 7 Eastern on ESPN Radio.
Speaking of LA, we've got John Ireland and Steve Mason here from our ESPN LA radio station. And breaking news this morning on ESPN, San Antonio Spurs forward Tim Duncan has announced he will retire after 19 seasons with the organization. Since drafting Duncan, the Spurs won 5 championships and posted a .710 winning percentage, which is the best 19-year stretch in NBA history. Obviously one of the greatest. But John, where does he rank amongst the greatest?
He, Jen, put simply, is the best power forward ever to play in the NBA. Ever. His competition would be Karl Malone or Kevin Garnett. He's better than both of them. And Jen mentioned that statistic, that his winning percentage with the Spurs was .710. That's not only the greatest 19-year winning percentage in NBA history, it's the greatest winning percentage for any individual in any major sport. He is the absolute benchmark for power forwards from this day moving forward. And he did it quietly. He did it efficiently. His nickname was perfect, the big fundamental. You would look down and the guy would have 21 points and 20 rebounds, and he would just kill you. And I'll tell you, I feel for the people in San Antonio because when we lost Kobe, it was a sad day. They're losing Duncan. There is nothing, guys, that I can say negative about Tim Duncan. He was excellent defensively. He was first-team all-defense 11 or 12 years. He was the best offensive player. He made it through 4 reincarnations of the Spurs. First, he won a title with Robinson. Then he won a title with Manu and Tony when Tony was the best player. They won a title when he was the best player. He won a title when Kawhi was the best player. Just the ultimate team guy and ultimate respect for that guy.
And amazingly, he won championships in 3 different decades.
Sure did.
Nobody else has ever done that. 17 consecutive seasons of 50-plus wins in San Antonio. All-time record. No other team has ever done that. His knock is that he isn't big enough a personality, right? He is very quiet. He's the big fundamental. I don't think anybody really appreciates. Anybody think is he a good Twitter follow? Probably not.
I would doubt he's on
not
Twitter.
even on Twitter.
Yeah.
Does he have a Facebook page? Probably not. So I think for this generation of younger NBA fans, he's like, hey, he's the old boring guy. He's the old. It's not the big fundamental. It's the big bore. But the reality is that he never worried about brand. He never worried about being on magazine covers. He never worried about having attention. He wasn't an attention fame seeker. He just wanted to do his job, and he did it unbelievably well.
Want to hear a Tim Duncan fact that'll surprise you guys? Pierced tongue.
Oh, that's
Tim Duncan has a pierced tongue.
We really need that.
All right. Another great Duncan story. Yeah. When he was, and this exemplifies what a great player Duncan was. His second year in the NBA, he couldn't shoot free throws. He was a Shaquille O'Neal-like 50% free throw shooter. He went out, shot them every day, worked himself up, and at the end of his career, he was a 70% free throw shooter. So he just had no weakness.
Here's another. There's another one people don't know. Superman tattoo right on the front of his shoulder.
It is unusual to see somebody.
No, I just made that up.
Oh, I was going to say, I don't know what to say to that.
That would be so anti-Duncan.
It is unusual, though.
Well, what, the pierced tongue thing you wouldn't have believed?
No, never.
To see someone so universally revered in their sport, is that because of the way he carried himself?
I think it's because of his talent. He was just, Jen, he was better at this than anybody else. What's the comp to Tim Duncan? Malone, ran the floor better, was a better scorer than Duncan, but Duncan was a better defender and a better rebounder. Garnett was a spectacular defender and had a couple of years where he was maybe better than Duncan, but Duncan, Steve, was count on him every night for 20 years.
And there was also an unselfishness about Duncan. Like, he didn't care that Tony ran the team one year. He didn't care that Kawhi emerged and ran the team. He was totally happy and comfortable doing his role as his role continued to change over the years.
And Greg Popovich.
And took less money. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
He took less money to stay in San Antonio and allow them to bring in a new crop of talent and a great role model and a great model, I think, for younger players who went to San Antonio.
And Greg Popovich says, guys, that because he had Tim Duncan, he was able to create that culture. Because Duncan did all those things that Steve talked about. When they went to him halfway through his career and says, Tony Parker is going to be the one on this team now. You've been the one for 7 or 8 years. Tony's talent demands it. He's going to be the one. They go to the finals. They win it. Tony's the NBA Finals MVP. When Kawhi got there, when LaMarcus Aldridge got there last year, they said, Tim, you got to go into the background. And because your best player was willing to do that and your best player was coachable, it made everybody else follow the leader. And Duncan was the leader, and they had that culture, and that's how they built 20 years of success in San Antonio.
Yeah, I mean, and that egolessness, I believe that's a term,
Yep.
egolessness
finally made up a word.
that the Golden State has. Really, the first time we saw it was with San Antonio in actually many years, but in 2014. You look, and everybody says, oh, that was a boring team. You know what? That was a beautiful team to watch. They moved the basketball. They were unselfish. They played a high-test kind of defense. And so, yes, the rap is they're boring. They're not boring if you're a basketball fan. John, you watch so many more basketball games than I do. That is beautiful basketball.
And the 2014 team you talked about was the birth of the Warriors.
Yes.
Steve Kerr basically took that and said, okay, we're going to put that in Golden State. And here's another thing that's just so typical of Duncan. Tomorrow, they're going to have a press conference in San Antonio announcing Duncan's retirement, and Duncan will not be there. It will be just Greg Popovich talking about Duncan. He just didn't care, Jen, about getting the credit or who got the credit. He just wanted to win, be a part of a winning team, and he was the best player, and everybody knew it. And it didn't matter that he didn't have, like Steve talked about, a brand.
Yeah.
He may be the last athlete we see that is a brandless athlete.
Tomorrow, will Popovich cry?
No.
Will he tear up?
No.
Will he be emotional?
Here's why.
Yeah.
Greg Popovich used to be the coach at the Air Force Academy, and Greg knows people that kids he coached who have gone off to war and died. He likes to say, hey, man, we're in the toy store of life. I'd be very surprised if he teared up. He's a military tough guy.
I do appreciate that you answered all of his questions with one-word answers in pop fashion. Bravo to you on that one.
Yes.
It is very difficult to quantify why someone is successful, but where do you think the consistency that he had with Greg Popovich as a head coach for his career there, where do you think that ranks as far as why he was
Well, I think that
It didn't hurt that he went to college for 4 years.
No, he did go to college, went to Wake Forest for 4 years. I think organizations are great. Teams are great when there is perfect alignment between ownership, coach, and star player. And they absolutely had that. The fact that Tim Duncan and Greg Popovich built such a degree of trust. Duncan became Popovich on the floor. He was the embodiment of the kind of basketball that he wanted his team to play.
And I'm sure Pop will say this tomorrow, Jen, because he could yell at Duncan and Duncan would take it, because Duncan was coachable, it allowed Pop to yell at everybody else, and that's how they got that alignment that Steve's talking about. We may not see another player like Tim Duncan ever, a guy who just doesn't care about commercials or media or brand and wins every year. 50 wins every year. I mean, who does that? Not even Kobe. I mean, it's an unbelievable career. Kudos to Tim Duncan. Wow.
Yeah, I would say I would love to debate and say something bad and then stick to my position and then yell at John. But in this particular case,
what do you say bad about him?
There's nothing you can say.
Nope.
Like, what is the other side of this?
Universally
argument?
Respected too by everybody in the NBA.
Yeah, and that is, as we said earlier in the show, very rare. So we are certain that the respect will continue to pour in for Tim Duncan as he announces his retirement from the league after 19 seasons.
We didn't execute offensively, and again, I don't ever like speaking for our defense. I think our defense will say the same thing. It was hard to get back into it.
It's going to be a lob here from Michael Crabtree. Touchdown! Raiders!
What we want to do offensively is phenomenal. He's got the whole package.
In the pocket, he's hit and sacked inside the 5. The ball is free. Denver's got it. Touchdown, Denver. And if you haven't started already, you can officially start now, because the Denver Broncos are world champions. They have just won Super Bowl 50.
Last season, the world champion Broncos won the division for the 4th straight year with Manning under center, while the Chiefs also made the playoffs but were eliminated by the Patriots in the divisional round. With Peyton, of course, out of the picture, the post-Manning era is now here, but Denver is left with an awful lot of questions. Steve, who wins the AFC West this year?
Well, 5 words for you. I believe in Mark Sanchez.
Oh, no.
You're the one.
Yes, I do. I said this today, and I was like, got nothing but laughs. It's apparently a punchline to a joke.
Mostly because of your past history.
Well, I mean, in reality, and they tell me they're going to play the butt fumble, which I think is completely unfair to the guy to boil somebody's career down to that one play. The Jets went to 2 AFC championship games with Mark Sanchez as the quarterback.
Wait a minute. And is this the play you're talking about? I'm not quite sure.
I said we should not play
you're
this.
talking about.
Come on.
Yeah, that's your quarterback?
That's not fair.
That's just going to lead them to a win in the AFC West.
I've known
win.
I've known Mark for years because I do USC pregame, and Mark is a great guy, and I believe in this offensive system, which is run heavy. Let's face it, they won last year with Peyton Manning, who was awful, just nothing short of awful. A shell of a, yeah, exactly. You said it, a shell of his former self, yeah. So this year, they've got C.J. Anderson back. They got Ronnie Hillman back, who led him in rushing. And I've got 2 words for you that I think, I'm big on that today, 2 words that I think will break open that offense. Devontae Booker, their 4th-round draft pick out of Utah. I saw him play a lot. I think he was a steal in the 4th round. And I think he's going to develop into a dynamic running back. I think Mark Sanchez can manage games, and that's all he has to do as long as he avoids butts.
How soon before they turn the page, though, to Lynch?
It's a fair question. I don't believe they go to Lynch this year. If they start losing, then I think you go to Lynch. But I think more likely Lynch holds the clipboard for a year while this great defense tries to make another big run.
I would be surprised if that happens. I think they will go to Lynch, and they'll go to him fairly early, before week 6. I think that is Paxton Lynch's job.
Because Sanchez has been struggling?
No, because they want Paxton Lynch to be the quarterback there, and we live in Los Angeles. We drafted Jared Goff. Every day Jeff Fisher says, no, Jared Goff's not.
Well,
Case Keenum is our starter.
Unfairly,
Jared Goff will be the starter.
There's a difference between Jared Goff as the number 1 pick and Paxton Lynch, who is a development quarterback.
Well, he was the number 22 pick.
Yeah, but still a development quarterback.
Broncos aren't winning that division.
Don't doubt Sanchez.
You're saying the Broncos will win.
I believe the Broncos.
Because you believe in Mark Sanchez.
Yes, because
at all.
At all. Exactly.
All right. Jen, let's show that butt fumble again.
No, let's
now,
not.
I like Mark Sanchez, too.
This is not
fair. But, Mason is looking back to the years of, 2008 when Sanchez was leading his team to the AFC Championship game. At this point of his career, and I like Mark, at this point of his career, he makes more plays like this.
Well, I mean, that's the other guy's fault. Yeah. That's not Mark's fault. It's his fault. 65.
But so I think the Broncos are going to have a Super Bowl hangover. I'm not picking them to win the division. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to be mad. They played very well last year. They won their last 10 games of the season. They finish up with an 11-5 record, and they don't win the division. I think they're going to be focused. They're going to be mad. There's nothing like a motivator of losing to get you back up there. And I think my Raiders, I'm a Raider fan, are going to have a winning record for the first time since 2002. Maybe as good as 10-6. I've got them 9 9-7, but they could be as good as 10-6. Look out for the Raiders. I think the Chiefs win it, probably with a record of 11-5. Broncos and Raiders battle for second, and if I'm lucky, Raiders get into the playoff, but our team is young, and I think we're a year away.
I agree. Year away for the Raiders. Plus, I hate the Raiders because they paint their, you go to a Raiders game.
Oh, I'll bring you to a game in the black hole. You'll love it.
You've been to the black hole once.
Come on, Jen, you can come with us.
You got dropped like a bag of rocks. So they paint
their
faces.
No, they don't beat you up if you wear black.
It's like rational reason to dislike the
It's
team.
like Project Runway when you go to a Raider game all black.
I'll introduce you to Chains. He's actually a very nice guy.
I'm sure he is a nice guy. No, I don't understand why you doubt that Mark Sanchez can't do what Alex Smith does. Alex Smith is a game manager. He is handing the ball off a lot. All he has to do is avoid mistakes.
Well,
I think Mark Sanchez can avoid mistakes.
I'm picking the Broncos to go 10-6, so I'm not saying they're going to fall off a cliff, but I don't think they're going to win the division. And the reason I'm not picking Mark Sanchez to do what Alex Smith can do is Alex and that group have been together for a while. Sanchez is new. He's got to learn that offense and learn those guys, and I think, look it up. Every year a team wins the Super Bowl, they take a small step back. Even Seattle took a small step back.
So you're calling for them to take a small step back?
Yeah, they went 12-4 last year. I'm picking them to go 10-6.
Oh, well, they're in the playoffs, right? They're in the playoffs, so I'm not.
I think, by the way, I think they could have 3 playoff teams out of the AFC West.
I think
the Raiders, Broncos, and Chiefs all could go to the playoffs.
Well, you mentioned double-digit wins for all 3 of those teams. They're going to beat each other up at some point.
Yeah, but the Chargers are terrible. I think the Chargers are going to be one of the worst teams in the league. They're going to be maybe 4-12, and in the division last year, actually, I think the Raiders went 3-3. The Chiefs and Broncos sweated off. I think outside of the division, those teams will be pretty dominant. Look at the other. I mean, the Patriots could beat them. Maybe the Steelers.
Well, we're really not far off, right?
Yeah.
You've got the Broncos at 10-6.
Right.
I've got them at
Chiefs at 11-5.
11-5. So we're right there.
Yeah.
That's all right. I'm not actually disagreeing with you.
Well,
I can't get really worked up over this one.
Well, I just don't think that Denver's going to win the division. I think that they're going to take a step back, a 2-game step back.
And most people, when they look at, I think all people, when they look at the success that the Denver Broncos had last year, they look at that defense, and we still have this unresolved situation with Von Miller. How does that affect this?
Well, I don't think it's great for the Broncos not.
He'll
to
play though, won't he?
But in the end, I think John Elway is warming up to the idea that he's going to make a deal. I mean, frankly, he won that Super Bowl last year. He won that Super Bowl. So,
that's what he keeps saying too.
They've got the franchise tag on him, which means he's going to be there no matter what. I just think he should be rewarded with one of those NFL contracts where he makes a bunch of money up front and the rest of it is pretend money.
And that's how that team will win, Jen, even if Sanchez struggles. And I'm not saying he's gonna, but if he does,
you're so anti-Sanchez.
That defense, I like Sanchez. He's not a bad guy, but he's not going to be the reason they win. That defense is going to be the reason they win. Last year, the Broncos won 12 games because they really only needed to score 28 points or 24 points, and they could win games.
And that'll be the same this year. That defense is just as good. They've held it together. Once they have Von Miller in the fold.
Championship game and the Super Bowl, they did it in defense.
Yeah, I mean, that last drive in the Super Bowl, I mean, come on. It was 3 handoffs to C.J. Anderson when you needed 1 first down. I believe they can trust a quarterback like Mark Sanchez to be able to dump the ball off one time at a critical moment.
What if he runs into the guy in front of him and drops the ball?
You know what? As long as he avoids butts, he's fine.
You're over here playing the Benny Hill music when he's out there on the field, right?
Exactly. And in Mark's defense, he is actually, we had him when he was at USC. We're both Los Angeles guys. But you won't meet a nicer guy than Sanchez. So we're rooting for him. But I think
I believe in him.
The Raiders are the wild card here. The Raiders could be 7-9, or they could be 10-6, 11-5. A lot of like smart football people are picking the Raiders to win that division.
It is amazing to think that they haven't been over 500 since 2002.
Right.
Since 2002.
Arguably now, though, they have the best quarterback in the division.
Sure.
Yep. They call him Mini Favre. And he's like a little Brett Favre.
And Khalil Mack might be the most underreported superstar in the NFL.
One of the top 5 defensive players in the game. And they've got a budding receiver. I love Amari Cooper.
Love Crabtree is a good compliment to him.
Yeah. Latavius Murray running the football. No, they've got it. They've got it together. It's the best Raiders team we've seen in a while. I just think that in that division, they were 1-7 against playoff teams last year.
Yeah. They were.
So
maybe a year away.
You can win
maybe a year away.
And they have been rebuilding for an awful long time.
It has been a long rebuild. Yep.
So obviously we got Chiefs here, Broncos here, as far as the AFC West goes.
Look out for the Raiders.
But a bit of a crapshoot, and they're saying keep your eye on Oakland as well. UFC President Dana White and his ownership group sold the UFC for $4 billion, according to our Darren Ravel. The $4 billion sale. That's billion with a B. I feel like we should emphasize that, is the most expensive transaction for an organization in sports history. They bought the company back in 2000 for $2 million. White will stay on and still own a portion of the business. John, how did this get so big?
Jen, the main reason is boxing fell asleep. I'm a big boxing fan, and now I'd rather watch UFC than boxing. Think about it. In this country, we get what we want. We're used to right now you can sign up for Amazon Prime and have anything at your house within a day or two. If you want to see a movie, if you want to go to we get what we want.
Instant gratification.
Right. UFC sensed that, and in boxing, you get sick of people saying, no, Floyd Mayweather won't fight Manny Pacquiao. No, we're going to wait. We're going to make you wait 5 years to get the fight you want. And UFC said, you know what, enough of that. We're gonna give you the fights what you want. We're gonna put guys in the ring. If you lose, it's not a big deal. Come back and fight again the next time. And now nobody cares that fighters lose in the UFC. And the biggest thing they did was they bridged the gender gap. At UFC 200 on Saturday, the women were a co-main event. What other sport do we do that in, where women would be a co-main event? So men can watch it, women can watch it, and Steve, as you always say, it gets right to it.
It does. It gets right to it. I'm going to throw out this theory. It'll probably go right over John's head. But,
absolutely.
So I was a pop culture major at Bowling Green State University.
That's a real thing.
It is a real thing, yes.
That's ridiculous.
So if you go back to the 30s, this is trust me, this has never been talked about on First Take. Go back to the 30s. It was the Depression, and a lot of movies were about a poor person falling in love with a rich person, right? It was everybody's dream. If you were poor, the idea was you could fall in love with somebody rich. It gave people hope. What's this generation interested in? They're interested in survival. That's what this younger generation cares about. Look at Walking Dead, arguably the most important show on television, the highest rated show on television. The same crowd that watches Walking Dead, which is all about survival, loves the fact that only one person walks out of that octagon. It's hitting some nerve right now, especially with what we call the millennial, I hate calling them the millennial generations, the 18 to 35.
You like to think you belong in there.
I am. I'm the world's oldest millennial, so I get it. I love Walking Dead. I love the UFC. And I'm telling you, it pays off in a way that no other sport does. Saturday night, UFC 200, the highlight was actually the women's fight. It was Miesha Tate. This is now the third champion to go down in 8 months now. She got hammered by Amanda Nunes. Does the press conference like this with her hand over her nose because it's busted up.
But you just tapped into something. 3 women's champions have gone down. You know, Ronda Rousey went down, Holly Holm went down, and now Miesha Tate went down. We don't care. We don't care that they went down. We'll watch them fight again. In boxing, if you lose, you go to the back of the line or you don't fight again. But in UFC, they've created a culture where we want to see everybody fight everybody. And you talked about the 18 to 35-year-olds. Jen, that's the reason for those numbers you talked about. Going from 2 million in, what'd you say, 2001, up to 4 billion now. This is a little inside baseball, but most people understand this.
That's okay. I love baseball.
Okay, what advertisers want are 18 to 35-year-olds. They want to tap into, because that's when you decide what brands you're going to use for most of the rest of your life. UFC delivers that in spades. It doesn't matter how you get to those kids. The UFC gets to them. Well, it's a brilliant marketing plan, and UFC deserves this big payoff.
Yeah, and I think the amazing thing about the UFC is now it's been sold to William Morris Endeavor. Ari Emanuel runs William Morris Endeavor, WME. That character, he is the inspiration for the character on Entourage, Ari Gold. Ari Gold. This is a guy who's a thinker. He's a big picture guy. We're going to start seeing the UFC and seeing its fighters in ways that are entirely different, because now these guys are going to be tapped into the movie business, into the television business. Their brands, and the UFC brand is going to grow exponentially. And by the way, good for the guys that sold it for 400, what is it, 4 billion, 2 billion?
Yeah,
4 billion.
4 billion.
4 billion. And it's also important to note that Dana White is going to continue in his role. We assume, because he's the Pied Piper, he's the guy that's out there selling this thing. He's a star in his own right. And as long as he's there, and with the power of WME, I think this sport is going to grow even more.
And boxing better wake up, Jen, because if they sit there and they don't give us the fights that we want, UFC's going to take all their audience.
Is boxing salvageable?
I think it is. I mean, there are still some great fights out there, and I still pay to see the big fights. But Steve asked me on the radio the other day, if I had to make a decision between watching a Pacquiao-Mayweather rematch or to buy UFC 202, I'm buying UFC 202. I know I'm not going to be disappointed. I know they're not going to dance around the ring and not hit anybody like Pacquiao and Mayweather did the first time. Boxing better start delivering the fights we want to see, and they better stop ducking each other, or UFC's going to take their whole gig.
And boxing's salvation is that in the Latin world, Mexicans in particular have kept the sport alive in the United States for years.
But look at what's happening. Canelo and Triple G won't fight.
Why will they not fight? They're avoiding the big moneymaker. I'll say this. UFC 200 was one John Jones away from being just spectacular. I don't know what that guy's got going on. He is an absolute mess. But can you imagine? I mean, Anderson Silva was a throw-in, never had a chance really against Cormier. If Cormier had fought John Jones, wow, what a night that would have been. Still a great card, but it could have been just spectacular.
Yeah, what does that say about the sport that they can lose someone like Bones Jones right before the event and people still flock to it and tune in?
Well, and back to the earlier point I made, a guy could lose. Conor McGregor could lose.
Right, to Nate Diaz, who was seemingly a journeyman.
And by the way, Nate Diaz last-minute replacement, just like Silva was, so you can't say for sure that Silva wouldn't have put up a fight, although he's kind of past his prime. But so Nate Diaz beats Conor McGregor. If Conor McGregor announced today, I guess he is going to be in 202, but if he announced today that he was fighting Saturday, Mason and I would both buy it.
Yeah.
Even though he just got his clock clean. We don't care. We know that we're going to get action. In boxing, we don't know that anymore.
The beauty of the UFC is nobody cares how many fights you lose. It is absolutely meaningless. Nobody cares if you're 16-5. They just want you to fight. You don't have to be undefeated to be relevant. You can lose fights in a spectacular way and actually become a bigger star moving forward. Ronda Rousey, when she got knocked out by Holly Holm, she actually, although it was a disastrous night for her, when she comes back and let's say she fights Amanda Nunes, man, that is a mega fight.
And it's a main event, which you don't see in other sports, that the women would be on the main bill. It'd be like going to I used to work, when I was working my way up in TV news, I worked in Monroe, Louisiana, and Louisiana Tech would put the women's games on after the men's games. The women would be the main event. But unless you're in a market like that, you don't see that. You don't see women being the big marquee thing. And so UFC now, if you and I wanted to do something on a Saturday night, I could talk you into the UFC. You wouldn't try and say, no, I don't want to watch that. They've got great crossover, and they get it.
Yeah, and it's not overly complicated either, to be honest with you. Some of the criticism of some of these other sports, you talk about soccer on the national or global scene, people aren't able to follow where guys are playing in this season and all
and
that
by the way,
stuff.
and there are very few decisions, right? There's very little doubt about who wins these fights. Yes. In boxing, we see things that just look rigged, right? They look rigged. In the UFC, you either in submission hold, you get knocked out, or it's really clear who really took command of the octagon. That's one of the beauties of this sport is you know who won. It's clear. It's never clear in boxing, or it's often not clear.
Or sometimes the guy who wins didn't really win. Yeah. In UFC, it's more clear cut.
Scott Burnside, ESPN.com here on the latest special edition of Hockey Today, the podcast. We talk PK Subban, Shea Weber deal. We talk Taylor Hall and Adam Larson and Steven Stamkos staying in Tampa. You can find it under the Listen tab on your ESPN app.
Who is bold and brave enough to face Stephen A. Smith as the new co-host of First Take? Starting July 25th, we are taking this show to the max. The newest member of the First Take family is ESPN's own Max Kellerman. In exactly 2 weeks from today, he will be part of the exciting new era of the best sports debate on television. We now welcome in the man himself, Max Kellerman. As we mentioned, July 25th, it goes down right here in Studio E with Stephen A. Smith. So let's begin with a message from Stephen A. Smith, who says, "I am ecstatic to have Max on board. We've known one another for years. We worked at ESPN New York together, and we both love our boxing. More importantly, Max is smart, quick on his feet, and never, ever afraid to go at anyone. Just the kind of partner I wanted. It's time. Let's go. Cannot wait." Max, we welcome you into Studio E. Still chilling in California as we speak, but making a move out here shortly. We know about your history in boxing. Will you and Stephen A. be bringing that to the table here?
Oh, it's going down. It is going down on this show right now. Not just about boxing, but about basketball. Stephen A. and I used to chop it up about all kinds of subjects on and off air when we were in ESPN New York for years, and this is going back a decade about, but obviously especially about boxing and basketball.
You mentioned basketball. We know obviously about Stephen A.'s position on Kevin Durant. Where do you stand in his decision to join the Warriors?
I didn't have a problem with it. I would have had a problem with it had the Warriors won the championship. If the Warriors go back-to-back titles, 73 wins, all-time wins record, and especially had they taken care of the Cavs in 5 or 6 games, something like that, and then Durant leaves the Thunder, who are improving and making strides, to go to that team, that's naked ring chasing. The fact that the Warriors lost to the Cavs, and that Steph Curry, let's face it, he choked. I mean, he played much under expectations, much under his normal standards. The fact that that was the case leaves a little opening for Durant to make the decision he made. And it's tough to fault him for wanting to go to a team that's maybe less talented than the Thunder, but plays basketball the way he wants to play, the quote-unquote right way.
One of the other big moves in free agency, of course, is Dwayne Wade joining the Chicago Bulls. How will this impact not only the Bulls, but also the Heat going forward?
I love this move for everyone involved. I think the Heat get out of paying for Dwayne Wade's declining years. He was playing at an all-star level last year. Remains to be seen this year. And then the year after that, it gets less and less likely, especially at this age. Guys tend to fall off a cliff eventually. So the Heat get out of that situation with Bosch's future, what it is, or if there's a future there. LeBron now gone, obviously. They can turn the page. Dragic and Whiteside, not bad guys to start to try and build something around. Meantime, Dwayne Wade gets to go home when he still has something left. You know, he's not going as a guy who can't play anymore. He was just playing at legitimate all-star level last year, one of the best two-way two guards in the league last year. So he gets to go home while he still has something. And then what's he going home to? What do the Bulls have? Well, it remains that maybe not enough shooting in that backcourt. You got Rondo and Wade and Jimmy Butler. But you got a real stretch for Mirotic, who I think has to get real minutes right now, even though Taj Gibson on the roster. And of course, the Robin Lopez trade. In Robin Lopez, you have a guy without the brand name of Joakim Noah, but given where Noah is in his career right now, Lopez is in his prime, he's less expensive, and at the moment, he's better. So I love this for the Bulls. They're at least interesting. They got a shot to do something in the East, maybe win a playoff series. I think it's good for everyone involved.
I'm glad that you're excited for my hometown Bulls, Max. Let's do some quick hitters with you so that the First Take audience knows where you stand. We begin with boxing. Manny or Floyd?
Well, Floyd beat Manny Pacquiao, and at the weight is better than Manny Pacquiao. Pound for pound, that's a different conversation. Manny Pacquiao started at flyweight, won his first lineal world title at flyweight, and rampaged through divisions. Pound for pound, there's a very good argument for Pacquiao. But in that division, head-to-head, Floyd.
To the NFL, how about Brady versus Manning?
I'm one of those stupid guys who thinks that if you win championships, well, that's a team award, et cetera, that has an effect on me. So and the fact that Peyton Manning has fallen off so severely throughout most of his career when you needed him most in the playoffs, still an effective player oftentimes, but not nearly what he'd been in the regular season, has me lean toward Brady.
From the NFL to the NBA, you've been stationed in LA for a while. Kobe or LeBron?
LeBron. I mean, at this point, what LeBron just did was have his Muhammad Ali moment. His Muhammad Ali against George Foreman in Zaire, when there's just no way it's going to get done at this point. You're down 3-1. This team just won 73 games, overcame adversity against the Thunder. It's a wrap for LeBron and the Cavs. That's when you see what's what. That's when you can pull off the miracle there. Then, you know, it's going to be tough for LeBron to ever catch Jordan. Jordan never choked in 4 straight finals games. But everyone else, LeBron is still in LeBron's sights. And if LeBron wins another championship next year, he's kind of forced himself back into the Jordan conversation, let alone the Kobe conversation.
And lastly, we know you guys touch on the old pop culture over there on Sports Nation, so we got to ask, favorite Game of Thrones character?
It would be easy to say the Khaleesi, right? That would be easy. And now that she's with Dinklage, those two, they're coming. I actually like... What's her name? The old one, the aunt who had to flee with the religious people who were coming to get her. And that one, whatever her name is. I can't keep track of all
So is it Marjorie's grandmother?
Yes! That's my favorite character.
All right, we'll be sure to discuss much more of that when you join.
So you don't even know her name, Marjorie's grandmother.
I don't know her name, but she is she's an OG, if you will.
That's right.
All right, Max Kellerman, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to send it over to the desk because we do have a couple guys that you know well. Mason Ireland here, and I know they want to hit you with some hard stuff before you get over here to Studio E.
They always do.
Max, I'm confused. You just got to Los Angeles. You're leaving?
Been here for almost 6 years.
6 years?
6 years? Are you kidding me?
6 years.
That's sunken
it seems like
television.
20.
So let's.
Yeah, how much perfect weather and you know all this kind of stuff can one man take?
I seriously thought we had you. I thought that once you moved to LA, you would never go back. And 2 of your daughters were born there, right?
2 of my daughters were born here, and none of them wanted to leave.
Okay, Max, I want to tell you something. Ready?
I'm ready.
You don't want to make an enemy of me. I am looking
it's too
right
late for that,
through
Mace.
the camera right now. I can see you.
That would have been much more intimidating if we could see you.
I know. It's terrible. I was like, where's my single?
So do you, Max, let's get to what's really important. When is the garage sale? You have too much stuff now that is like unique to LA. You have an LA car. I'm sure you have stuff that, I mean, I want to get all the stuff that you don't need anymore. How do I get my hands on that?
You are not kidding. Like, that's actually, when you move someplace, this is what people actually do. Like, what am I going to do with all this stuff? What do I sell it? Give it to people? I don't know what to do.
Well, we'll miss you, and congratulations. You'll be in good hands back here.
I was just waiting for you. I thought I was getting this job. I'll be honest.
Until like 10 minutes ago, he thought.
I thought I was playing my way into this job, and apparently I've been overlooked once again.
Mace, I assumed you turned it down.
Yeah, no, you're right. I did pass. There's no way I'm leaving Los Angeles. No,
well,
you will be missed.
Good luck for me.
You will be missed by a small segment of our station's audience that likes you.
And me. You'll be missed by me.
But only because he wants your stuff.
No,
Once
congrats,
again,
Max.
Make sure to tune in on July 25th for Max's debut here on First Take. That is just 2 weeks from today. Do not miss Max, Molly, and Stephen A. Smith here in Studio E for the start of a new era on First Take.
Give to Gurley, head of steam, 30, 35, 40, there he goes, 50. Being chased, they're not going to get him. Touchdown, Todd Gurley.
The Rams heading to Inglewood, California, where they will play the 2016 season.
It's official, the Rams are coming home.
We didn't get this one right, and we need to make sure that we get the next one right. We need to make sure that we learn from this season.
Snap to Palmer, shovels it inside to Fitzgerald, up the middle to the end zone for the game-winning touchdown. Fires inside, ball's caught by Johnson. He gets in the end zone, he fumbles in the end zone. The ball comes out of the back of the end zone. The official says it's a touchback.
For the 4th straight year, the NFC West had 2 teams make the playoffs. And for the 4th year in a row, the Seahawks were one of those teams. Seattle was eliminated in the divisional round, and the NFC West champion Cardinals were eliminated by the Panthers, of course, in the NFC Championship game. So a lot of teams with significant success last season. Mace, who wins the NFC West this year?
I'm all about the Seattle Seahawks. As John knows, I love Pete Carroll. I worked for USC during the Pete Carroll years. I did pregame. I was around the team a lot. Pete Carroll has kind of this new agey bag of magic dust thing he does, and he finds a way to really bring guys together. Last year, I saw Russell Wilson emerge as a top 5 quarterback, no question a top 5 quarterback. I love the fact that Thomas Rawls has slid into that Marshawn Lynch role. He's going to chew up a lot of yards, and Jimmy Graham is going to be healthy. Defense speaks for itself with Richard Sherman. I know that it's not the popular pick, but I think Seattle wins the division.
This is a very hard division to pick. I wish I could be as high on Seattle as Steve is, but I'm not. There has to be There has to be a drop-off with Chancellor and Lynch leaving. Those two guys are too good. Rawls did a good job when Lynch was down last year. You actually statistically can make the argument that they ran the ball better when Lynch wasn't there. And Russell Wilson in the second half had 25 touchdown passes and 2 interceptions. 25 and 2. So they were great. But the Cardinals look like a team on a mission. I've been watching that thing on Amazon. It's like a Hard Knocks about the Cardinals. And they just look like a team that is going to come back. I mentioned this earlier in the show. I think the biggest motivator you can get is to get embarrassed either in the Super Bowl or right before the Super Bowl, because you remember it. And the Cardinals got embarrassed in Carolina in the NFC Championship game last year. I think when you look at their team, with the depth they have at running back, with the David Johnson and Chris Johnson, and Larry Fitzgerald has reinvented himself as an inside receiver, and John Brown's great. I love Bruce Arians, their coach. I've got Arizona winning this division. Very similar to what it was last year. I think Arizona probably goes 11-5. Seattle right there, maybe 11-5, 10-6. The Rams are the wild card. I think the Rams have the potential to have a winning season, but I've got them at 8-8. I love Todd Gurley. Not sure about their offensive line. Jared Goff's going to get thrown to the Wolves, and if he gets beat up early, they've given up a couple of their leading tacklers. I don't think the Rams are any better than 8-8.
Okay, yeah, I do. I actually think, but let me start with Arizona. I think Arizona has slid into the category of getting old. The players you mentioned, from Larry Fitzgerald to Chris Johnson to Carson Palmer, these guys are all north of 40 now. Now, Pete Carroll 30. Said 30. Pete Carroll said, north of 40 would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Carson's getting close.
Pete Carroll says that Carson Palmer is the Nolan Ryan of football. I get that. He does keep going and going and going.
If he gets hurt, they're dead. I'll give you that.
Yeah, but I see an age factor there. I do think the Rams are the young team on the rise. Now, I'll make a disclaimer. Our station, ESPN Los Angeles, will be the home of the Rams for the next, I don't know how many years, many years, we hope. And I think that this Rams team could look very much like Seattle looked when Russell Wilson was a rookie. They've got, I think, the best running back in the game in Todd Gurley. I would be shocked if he doesn't lead the league in rushing. He finished third after missing 3.5 games last year with that knee thing, coming back from the knee thing. So you're not going to ask for Jared Goff to do a lot. He's got a nifty weapon in Tavon Austin. And Aaron Donald, some people think he's the best player, the best defensive player in football, right there alongside J.J. Watt. Trumaine Johnson back at cornerback. I mean, I see a lot of reasons to be optimistic, and there's always one team that pops. This year, especially with the surge of energy from being back in Los Angeles, I think this might be the team that pops.
They're going to have questions about that offensive line, and one thing I didn't talk about with Arizona, and the reason why I'm picking him, is I think their defense is fantastic. I think Patrick Peterson might be the best defensive back in all of football, better than Trumaine Johnson, and I think that defensively, that is a team that causes turnovers, scores off of the turnovers, a lot like Seattle was 3-4 years ago. They're the best defense, Arizona, in the division, and that's why they win.
To John's point, I hate saying that to John's point because his points I disagree with most of the time. But to John's point, Arizona blitzed 50 more times than any other team in the NFL this past year. They are a blitz-happy defense, so they are really fun to watch. Bruce Arians is completely aggressive. But I do think that it's important to note that John hasn't been right about one of his picks in, 7-8 years? So whatever John says, you should generally do the other thing. Because John, his middle name is wrong. John Wrong Ireland.
Well, there's a reason we call him Last Place Mace. He basically just did everything about him and threw it on me. Mason's last correct prediction was in 1978.
Was Kevin Durant to Golden State?
That's what it was.
That was a laser call right there.
Yeah, laser.
So I'm on a winning streak right now. And you can take Seattle to the bank. I've got a picture of Pete Carroll, like a picture of him on my bedstand, because I'm such a huge Pete Carroll
He actually believes, Jen, that Pete Carroll knew nothing about what was happening at USC.
He knew nothing about it.
He knew nothing.
I have read the 32-page report from the NCAA, and at no point is there linkage between Reggie Bush and Pete Carroll. I don't believe he was guilty in that count. Ireland does. He besmirches Pete all the time, and I am with Pete, and I do believe he's got something. Can I tell Pete Carroll's story?
Absolutely.
Okay. He was head coach of the Jets. They were in a critical fourth down situation at the goal line. All right? Now, a lot of coaches would say, end of the game, if you don't score this touchdown, you will take this to your grave. And you know what Pete did when they came to the sidelines? He said, man, this is great. This is why we play football. This is why it's so much fun. And they scored that touchdown. He just goes at things from a completely unorthodox way, and that's why I think it works.
That's how I handle my son's dentist.
Isn't that story great? Isn't that
you know how that story ends? Fired by the Jets after one season. So, it depends. It all figures what you focus on.
Much like the Seattle Seahawks last year, you started out slow, but you're coming on as the show goes on.
Yeah, I'm rallying, right?
Let me ask you a question.
And here comes the part where he falls behind 31-0 to Carolina.
Let me ask you a question, because you both have gone on record saying that you think that the Cardinals are, they were a juggernaut last season. They will likely have success. Has Carson Palmer shaken the playoff woes of his career? Is he shaken that reputation?
Well, the last game's not going to help. He probably needs to get to the Super Bowl to shake that completely. And that was one of the worst performances of his career, the NFC Championship in Carolina. But he was going up against Cam Newton and a team that in that building in Carolina was just impossible to beat. So
you think more is made of that than necessary?
Yeah, I mean, he's a great quarterback. He's a top 10 NFL quarterback. But yeah, it's a knock on him that he hasn't had any It's the Clayton Kershaw to us in Los Angeles. Clayton is a fantastic player, has no success in the postseason. Carson could use some.
He does have success in the postseason. You just tend to dwell on the negative. Clayton Kershaw has thrown everything but a couple of bad games in the postseason.
His ERA is double what it is.
Carson Palmer, in my opinion, at 36, is probably on the other side of the mountain. And the question is, can he do this again, or was that his peak season? I love Carson, but I think that might be his peak season.
Well, much like the conversation we had about the Broncos defense, as you guys have mentioned, will play a big role in whether or not they are successful.
And that's a slugfest at the top of that division.
Oh, man.
Arizona, Seattle can't miss.
And the Rams.
And the
Rams have a great young
defense.
defense.
You guys are hedging your bets, I see.
No, I'm not. Seattle. I'm all over Seattle with the Rams getting the wild card. And Carson Palmer's old, not getting in the playoffs. How about that? Is that bet hedging? Me and Pete Carroll, absolutely. Didn't know anything about Reggie Bush's house. Trust me, didn't. Read the report.
I was disappointed like I was disappointed when LeBron went to Miami. Kevin's a terrific player. He's a good kid. But just disappointed that the fact that he weakened another team and he's going to kind of gravy train on a terrific Warriors team. Just disappointed from a competitive standpoint because it would mean more to win one. Just like it meant more to LeBron to win one in Cleveland. It would mean more to Kevin to win one in Oklahoma than it would be in Golden State.
So Charles Barkley is disappointed that Kevin Durant went to the Warriors. We asked you earlier in the show, is Durant to Golden State a good or bad thing for the NBA? Check out the results. Over 11,000 votes made, and 65% say KD to Golden State is bad for the NBA. Did our Twitter followers get it right?
No, it's great for the NBA. By the way, Charles got to use his favorite word, gravy. He absolutely loves gravy.
I can see that.
No, I think this is great for the NBA. We're talking about it. I mean, the bad side of creating this team in Golden State is there is going to be a predictability now for the NBA Finals. I mean, give me right now Golden State and Cleveland. It's going to happen, Golden State and Cleveland. Now, that will be a dramatic series, but it renders a lot of the games leading up to it kind of incidental, kind of meaningless.
And Steve's right. Dynastic teams in the NBA are a good thing.
Good word, dynastic.
If you are an 80s fan, it was Lakers-Celtics every year, and you looked forward to Lakers-Celtics every year. Mm-hmm. When Michael Jordan's Bulls, your Chicago girl, Jen, when they were good, that was appointment television. Wait till you see the ratings for the next two finals. And Steve's right. It's going to be Golden State and Cleveland, and people will gravitate to it. The monster ratings coming for the NBA.
Can I make a suggestion? Unprecedented. Hour number 3. You want to do a third hour first take? Come on.
Sure.
Come on. It'll be like second take.
What do you got?
Let's just keep going. Let's just keep going. By the way, Max, his favorite character is Marjorie's grandmother, Queen of Thorns.
Thank you.
My favorite character is Cersei because of the wildfire and the way she did that last. Oh, was that crazy or what?
My son called me Cersei the other day. I didn't.
Is that? Oh no, that's not a good thing. That is terrible.
How old is your son?
He was 7. He was very angry.
No more Game of Thrones for that kid.
Yeah, no, that kid is taking it out of control.
Yeah. So congratulations to Max.
Yeah, way to go, Max.
Who will be joining
Max, can I have your car?
And Molly right here on the first First Take set. That is, of course, coming up in 2 weeks. It has been an honor to have you two
Come on,
here.
not an honor.
It's not. You can't wait to get rid
You
of
guys
us.
have been terrific.
Come on,
giving us the LA flavor.
You want Waddy and Boo Boo in here tomorrow? Let's face it.
That's true. I'll be asking them about all of our
They're the
football
Chicago
favorites.
guys.
Tell me about Chicago. What's happening?
Just promise me this. You'll give a hard time to Jalen and Jacoby. Promise?
Yeah, no.
I'll let Molly know.
Give
to a hard
them
time
the
too.
business. Yes.
Please.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching First Take. We'll be back tomorrow.
Bye.
Geico presents sharing versus oversharing. Earlier this week, Claire Tippin shared a princess nickname generator, 3 pictures of her dog wearing a tutu, and 2 online quizzes, including, what candy is your dream castle made of? Claire, your sharing has tipped the sugar scale and turned into oversharing. But have no fear, princess. Geico has something worth sharing with your internet kingdom, like how you could save hundreds on your car insurance just by visiting geico.com. No magic wand required. Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.